My name is Lee Soo-yeon, and I still remember the day I first saw Seoul as if it happened just yesterday. Stepping off the bus, I looked around nervously, gripping the handle of my well-worn suitcase tighter. My heart was beating in an unfamiliar rhythm, a mix of fear, excitement, and anticipation of something new. I grew up in a small provincial town, where everything felt so stable and orderly, familiar faces since childhood, a steady life in the same rhythm. But in that moment, a completely different kind of music played inside me, loud, restless, pushing me forward despite my uncertainty. I came here with a clear goal. I wanted to become a professional choreographer, a dancer who could create dazzling performances and live doing what she loved. Maybe if I had been a little braver and more determined, I would have come here long ago. But it took me years to build up enough courage to tell my parents, "Mom, Dad, I want to live in Seoul and dance." They weren't against it, but I could feel their anxiety. And now that I'm actually here, in this huge city, it feels like their worry has become mine. Renting a cheap semi-basement room from an elderly landlady and enrolling in choreography courses at a small college, that's how I started my journey. It sounds simple, but in reality, I had to stretch every penny. I washed dishes in the evening so the landlady would lower my rent, and I also worked part-time as a waitress at a small cafe just to afford my tuition and buy dance shoes. But the real turning point came when I got a job at one of the nightclubs in Itaewon, a noisy and famous district in Seoul where clubs blast music until dawn. I didn't go there out of a love for nightlife, but because I desperately needed the money. The pay was slightly better than at the cafe, and the working hours fit well with my daytime rehearsals and classes. I kept telling myself it was temporary. But it was there that I met someone who completely changed my inner world. Itaewon had always seemed out of reach to me, like a world of its own. I'd only seen it on my laptop screen, bright lights, crowds of foreigners, loud music, hundreds of bars and dance floors. It all seemed so captivating, but I never thought I'd actually end up there myself. My first time walking the streets of Itaewon was a blur of unfamiliar faces, people rushing somewhere, laughing, speaking in different languages. I tried not to get lost in the colorful crowd as I made my way to the club where they were expecting me. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt like a tiny grain of sand in this vast, noisy ocean of nightlife. And then, an abrupt shift in atmosphere, the club's door, a giant neon sign, bass so strong it made the walls and floor vibrate. From that moment on, I became a part of that world. My waitress shifts began late in the evening and ended well past midnight. I served drinks, kept an eye on the tables, and sometimes I was even asked to step on stage and perform a short dance to entertain the guests. Sometimes the club manager would see me dancing along to the music with genuine joy, and with a smirk he'd say, "Hey, Soo-yeon, looks like your feet are itching to be on stage. Why don't you try something fiery?" I would blush, but still step out. I loved the atmosphere. When I danced, I felt free, like all my exhaustion was being washed away. Of course, the club's patrons were often drunk. Some tried to hit on me, others made inappropriate comments. But I've never liked conflicts, even as a child, and I had learned to avoid unpleasant situations politely, without making a fuss. However, one day, that peaceful method stopped working. That evening, I had planned to stay after my shift to audition for a spot as a backup dancer in the club's new show. They said they were looking for several dancers, a chance that could be a stepping stone toward my dream. Gathering my courage, I agreed to our art director's offer and waited for the crowd to calm down a little so I could show what I was capable of. When the moment came, I stepped onto the dance floor. The DJ turned off the main track, and a pre-selected song began to play, energetic, with a strong beat, something close to hip-hop but with electronic elements. I started to move, trying to forget the dozens of eyes around me, trying to hear only the rhythm and my heartbeat. After about 30 seconds, I felt joy igniting inside me, my feet lifting off the ground with ease, my body catching every beat on its own. But suddenly, my dance was interrupted by a stranger. I saw him approach with a grimace, as if I were ruining his evening. Swaying unsteadily, he stood right in front of me, clapping loudly in time with the music, but in a way that was clearly mocking me. I didn't know what to do. I kept dancing, but I could feel the energy shift. He was getting too close. "Hey, gorgeous!" he shouted drunkenly over the music. "Come on, show me something just for me." I didn't want a confrontation, so I took a step to the side, but he grabbed my arm. I froze in fear. I could feel myself start to shake, but I still tried to speak softly and calmly. "Please let go. You're behaving inappropriately." My words had no effect. He squeezed my wrist harder and pulled me toward him. For a moment, I thought I wouldn't be able to get away. My mind raced, searching for a way out. Usually in situations like this, a security guard or staff member would step in quickly. But this time, no one had noticed what was happening. I tried to twist my arm free, but he just grabbed my waist roughly, pulling me closer. "Relax," he hissed. "It's a club, everyone's just having fun." Panic surged through me as I looked around, hoping someone would see me and help. And then, through the flashes of laser lights, a figure appeared. I heard a low but firm voice, "I'll break your hands." The man didn't realize at first that the words were directed at him. He turned, swaying slightly, and finally let go of my arm. A sharp pain shot through it, and I instinctively pulled it to my chest. Standing in front of us was the DJ. The same one I'd seen countless times behind the booth as I rushed past with drink orders. He always stood out, striking looks, a confident smile, precise but fluid movements over the mixer. But now that smile was gone, replaced by a cold, calm expression. "Walk away, buddy," he said, staring directly at the aggressor. "She doesn't owe you a dance, or a word. What's it to you?" The guy snapped. "Got your eye on her or something? Or are you the boss around here?" The DJ didn't answer, but he stepped forward. Even in the dim light, I could see the muscles in his neck tense and a dangerous glint flash in his eyes. The drunk man sensed the threat and backed off. Maybe it was the DJ's reputation that got to him. Yoo Chan-suk, a legend in the local club scene, known for being able to fire up any crowd. And as if to confirm the rumors, a security guard appeared at his side, clearly recognizing him. They didn't cause a scene, but the man was quickly escorted out of the club. I stood in the middle of the dance floor, trying to calm myself down. The music was still playing, but all I could hear was the rush of blood in my ears. The party continued around me, people dancing, laughing, completely unaware of what had just happened. DJ Yoo Chan-suk stood nearby. I looked at him, and our eyes met. His expression had softened, a faint half-smile playing on his lips again. But there was still something distant and cold in his gaze, as if he had helped me simply because he couldn't not help, not because he truly cared. "Thank you," I said, embarrassed. "Sorry I got you involved. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "It's all right," he replied, his voice a little warmer this time. "But be more careful next time. There's a lot of scum around here." I wanted to say something more, but he had already turned and walked back toward the DJ booth. Just like that, he was back in his element, switching tracks, blending beats. It felt like rhythm and sound were the core of his being. Watching him, I felt a strange mix of gratitude and curiosity rising in me. Who was he, really, this well-known DJ, so consumed by music? The rest of the evening passed in a blur. The audition I had stepped onto the dance floor for was no longer an option. I was too shaken by what had happened to give a proper performance. In the end, I approached the art director and asked to reschedule. He nodded, noticing I was trembling. He probably thought I was too soft for the fast-paced world of showbiz, but at least he didn't throw me out. When the club emptied, I stayed behind at the bar, waiting for the cleaners to finish mopping the floor. They told me I could wait for my paycheck by the exit, but I was too overwhelmed to move. I sat in a corner, clutching my phone, reading a few unsent messages to my parents, *everything's fine. I didn't want to upset them with the truth, how I'd nearly been grabbed by a drunk clubgoer. "Hey," a calm voice said nearby. "Your name's Soo-yeon, right?" I looked up and saw a familiar face. It was DJ Yoo Chan-suk. We had barely interacted before, apart from the few times I'd brought him water to the booth. He rarely ordered anything besides bottled water and always just nodded in acknowledgement without starting a conversation. "Yes," I replied quietly. "Are you okay?" he asked, frowning slightly. "Sorry if I came off too harsh, but that creep probably wouldn't have backed off otherwise." "Thanks again." "I'm the one who should apologize for causing a scene," I said, still avoiding eye contact. I felt ashamed. "You have nothing to apologize for," he cut me off, leaning against the bar. "Stuff like that isn't uncommon here. Just be careful when you go out on the floor. You know how it is, this crowd's not exactly sober most of the time." I nodded. It seemed like neither of us had anything more to say. Then, suddenly, he reached out and lightly touched my hand, right where the angry red marks from the man's grip still lingered. "You should put something cold on that," he said, and there was a note of concern in his voice. "It'll heal faster." "Thanks," I replied, rising from the barstool. I should probably go. I've got a long ride home." He nodded, but I caught a fleeting glance he gave me, like he wanted to say something else. But he didn't. In that moment, I thought maybe he was just as guarded and cautious in his interactions as I was. Or maybe he simply didn't care. Either way, I wasn't going to pry into his life. We were just co-workers at a nightclub, he, the famous DJ who moved crowds with his music, and me, the modest waitress who sometimes danced for a little extra money. The next evening, I was back at work. My arm still ached, but it didn't show. I had rolled down my sleeves to cover the bruise. I didn't want anyone feeling sorry for me, and I never liked complaining. Who would have thought we'd cross paths again so soon? At first, everything went as usual. I served drinks, smiled politely at customers, and kept my distance from the overly drunk ones. The music pounded in my ears, lights flashed across the crowd. At one point, I got distracted for just a second, and someone bumped into me, nearly knocking the tray from my hands. I gasped, struggling to keep my balance. Thankfully, nothing spilled. When I looked up, I saw a familiar face. "Oh, sorry." "Oh, it's you again." I didn't see where I was going," Yoo Chan-suk said, looking at me with a slightly surprised expression, as if he wasn't expecting to see me. "No worries," I mumbled quickly, lowering my eyes. We both stood there in an awkward silence. But then he shifted to a more casual tone. "How's your hand?" "Better now," I said with a small smile, trying to appear confident. "Glad to hear it." And again, silence fell between us. Sometimes silence can tell you more about a person than words ever could. Finally, he nodded, well. I should get back to the booth. See you around." "Sure," I nodded back. I watched him walk away, and that strange feeling returned, a mix of gratitude and a quiet, budding affection. He seemed like someone who kept others at arm's length, but wasn't unkind. A few days later, the art director finally gave me another chance to audition. This time, I was ready. I'd rehearsed all the dance routines, fixed up my appearance. But when I stepped onto the small stage and the music started, I realized something. The DJ behind the booth wasn't the guest performer we'd been expecting. It was Yoo Chan-suk. Apparently, there had been a last-minute change in the schedule, and he had agreed to fill in. The music he played was perfectly attuned to my movements. It felt like every beat of the drums and each electronic pulse supported me, feeding me some kind of magic energy. I started to dance, listening only to my body and the rich rhythm. And then something inside me broke free. I imagined myself on a grand stage, with every gesture seen and felt by the audience. I forgot my insecurities, let go of my shyness, and gave everything I had. When the track ended, I realized I'd been holding my breath the whole time. Now I was breathing heavily, looking around in confusion, while inside me swirled a mix of joy and fear. How would they react? A few people from the club's management team were standing nearby, the art director, one of the promoters, and a woman I assumed was the show's choreographer. They were animatedly discussing something. "Great sense of rhythm," came a calm voice. I turned and saw Yoo Chan-suk standing next to me. "I liked it." "Thank you," I breathed out, my heart pounding not just from exertion, but from the tone in his voice. It lacked its usual coldness. At that moment, the art director approached me with a broad smile on his face. "Congratulations, Miss Lee. I think you're a good fit for us. You'll be performing once a week in the main show. The pay isn't much, but it's better than nothing." "Thank you." I nearly jumped with joy. I looked at Yoo Chan-suk, but he just gave a small nod and walked away, as if to say his words of praise didn't require a response. And yet, inside me, a quiet but glowing song of gratitude began to play. That's how I became part of the program. Not a star, maybe, but no longer just an anonymous waitress in a nightclub. Short dance numbers for the crowd, the promise of participating in full productions, it all filled me with a newfound confidence. And I developed a strange habit. Whenever I saw Yoo Chan-suk at the DJ booth, I would quietly look for his gaze, trying to guess what he was feeling, what he was thinking. He rarely reacted, just a slight nod or the faintest curl of a smile. But one glance like that could warm me for the entire evening. Over time, I noticed that many people in the club regarded Yoo Chan-suk with a mix of awe and fear. "He's the hottest guy here," the other waitresses would say in the locker room before shifts. "Yeah, but he looks like someone who's been through hell," one would reply. "They say he got mixed up with some bad people and now has a mountain of debt," another would add. Everyone was eager to share the legends and rumors that he used to be some kind of street punk, got into fights, and somehow pulled himself out thanks to his talent and sharp ear. He rose to become a cult DJ everyone knew, yet someone still haunted by the shadows of his past. I only half listened to all this, but the feeling that there were old wounds behind Chan-suk's somber eyes kept growing stronger. And when I'd catch him hunched in a corner of the back room, staring at his phone like he was waiting for a call that could decide his fate, I'd feel a strange anxiety stir inside me. Why did I even care? We barely knew each other. One night we ran into each other outside the club. I had decided to wait until morning to avoid paying for a taxi. The night was overcast and drizzling. I sat under the awning, huddled in my sweater. Suddenly a motorcycle pulled up nearby, and even though the rider was wearing a helmet, I recognized Chan-suk. He muttered something under his breath when he saw me sitting alone in that kind of weather. "What are you doing here?" came his muffled voice. "It's almost 4 in the morning. I'm afraid a taxi's too expensive, and I don't really have the money," I admitted honestly. "Just waiting for the first bus." "Hop on, I'll give you a ride." I was taken aback by the offer. The thought of riding through nighttime Seoul on a motorcycle with him both frightened and excited me. But the alternative, waiting out the damp cold until sunrise, wasn't appealing either. Something told me he wouldn't hurt me besides, I was tired and freezing. So, after hesitating for a moment, I agreed. "Hold on tight," he warned as I climbed on behind him. The pounding of my heart seemed louder than the rain. I wrapped my arms around his waist, feeling the leather of his jacket under my fingers. The bike shot forward, and the night streets of Seoul blurred past in neon colors. At 4 in the morning, the city felt like a dream, half-empty roads, wind whipping through my hair, glowing billboards, and wet pavement streaking by. We stopped in front of my semi-basement building. I climbed off the bike, wiping rain from my forehead, and tried to say something like "thank you" or "sorry for bothering you." He took off his helmet, and his slightly tousled hair stuck to his forehead. His eyes were calm, but I could see the weariness behind them. "You live here?" he asked. "Yeah. Just temporarily," I added, not sure why I felt the need to clarify. "Thanks for the ride." He nodded, and I thought he was about to leave. But then he said, "Want to come in for a minute? I've got hot tea." "You're soaked." My heart nearly leapt out of my chest, from my own words. Inviting a nearly stranger into my home at 4 in the morning? It sounded insane. "Okay, sure. Come on in." He shrugged, parked the bike farther down the street, and we went inside my basement room. It really was tiny, just a bed in one corner, a kitchenette in the other. But it was mine, a simple blanket on the bed, a few books on choreography, a stack of school materials on the table, an old laptop. I turned on the light, trying not to show how embarrassed I was. He looked around. "It's cozy," he said, with a small smile I couldn't quite read. "Ceilings are a bit low." I busied myself putting water on for tea, pulling out my favorite mug with a cat on it and dropping in a green tea bag. "Sorry, I only have the one mug," I said, flustered. "I always drink from this one." "Then let's share," he replied with a smile that made my stomach flutter. "I don't mind." I could feel my ears burning. But when I looked at him, taking in the humble space and my awkwardness, I saw no judgment or mockery in his expression. On the contrary, he looked warm. Like someone who hadn't felt real human warmth in a long time, only the chaos of nightlife. We sat side by side on my little bed, the soft light of my desk lamp casting shadows across his face, highlighting his high cheekbones and dark eyes. I took a sip and handed him the mug. He took a sip and winced. "It's hot." "Sorry," I laughed. "It's fine. Kinda nice, actually." Outside, the rain kept tapping against the awning. For a while, I forgot about my fears, the harshness of the city, and the fact that he was basically a stranger. I just felt at peace. Finally, I dared to ask the question that had been on my mind since I started working at the club: why did you become a DJ? Everyone says it's all dolce vita, parties, beautiful girls, oceans of alcohol. But you look like it's not fun for you. More like a form of survival. He seemed taken aback by the bluntness of my question. But there was a flicker of something in his eyes, like he was glad someone had noticed his weariness. "To be honest," he began, placing the mug on the nightstand, "music is like another world for me, someplace I can lose myself. I used to be a completely different person, made a lot of mistakes. Music. It kept me from going insane." He gripped the edge of my bedsheet like he needed something to hold on to in the moment of vulnerability. I don't want to go into too much detail, but my family fell apart when I was a teenager. My mom left, and I blamed the whole world. Got in with the wrong people, looked for a place to belong, ended up in some bad scenes. But then, the first time I touched a DJ console, felt the bass thumping, learned how to mix tracks. That's when I realized there's a place where everything can sound harmonious. Even if only for a moment. I stayed silent, stunned by his honesty. He looked at me as if afraid he'd said too much. "Sorry, I'm probably just dumping all this on you." "No, it's okay," I said quickly, feeling a deep urge to reach out and hug him, to tell him he wasn't alone. But I couldn't quite bring myself to do it. We talked a bit more after that, until he glanced at the time and realized dawn was near. He stood up and, almost apologetically, said, "I should go. Thanks for the tea." As he headed for the door, I watched him with a tightening feeling in my chest, as if I was afraid this moment might never come again. And just as he was about to leave, I called out, "Chansuk." He turned around. "If you ever want more tea, come by." He gave me a crooked smile and nodded. Ever since that night when Chansuk first came over for a cup of tea, I started noticing strange changes in myself. I used to view life in Seoul with quiet curiosity and constant uncertainty, but now my heart beat faster at the thought that somewhere in the same crowd was someone who might actually care about me. Then again, I couldn't quite explain what exactly I felt for him. It wasn't just attraction or affection, it was a tangled mess of emotions, a deep wish to help him deal with the ghosts of his past, and at the same time, a fear that I wouldn't be able to handle his coldness or mood swings. I saw Chansuk almost every night. Sometimes he just nodded at me, other times he'd stop to chat briefly about music or dancing. One night, after one of my performances, I came up to the DJ booth, trying to shout over the loud music, "Hey! Thanks for the amazing set. It was perfect to dance to. He gave me a faint smile, tilting his head slightly. No, thank you. You were really on the beat. I felt my face go red. It was rare for him to give compliments, and he usually kept things brief. I pretended not to notice my own flustered state. Hey, could you maybe send me the name of that track? I'd love to practice with it at home. Sure, he said, pulling his phone out of his pocket. Give me your number, I'll send you the link. I froze. It was one of those moments where we both realized we hadn't exchanged contact info until now. I gave him my number, trying to keep my voice steady. He typed it in and immediately sent me a message so I'd have his contact saved, Chansuk. Just that. One simple word. But inside, something flared up, this quiet, glowing feeling that we'd just gotten a little closer. After the club closed, we often ended up leaving together. Sometimes he gave me a lift on his bike, sometimes we walked if he had to talk to someone from security or staff. During those short walks, I got to learn a bit more about him. He never shared much, but it felt like he appreciated that I wasn't pushing or prying too hard. I live alone, on the other side of the city, he said one night as we stood near my building, sheltering from the damp evening air. But I'm barely ever there. I work nights, sleep during the day or go to meetings. Sometimes I wonder, what's the point of having an apartment if I spend maybe a couple of hours there a day? I wish I had a place of my own, I admitted. But for now, it's just a dream. It's way too expensive to rent anything decent downtown, and I don't want to move far away. The commute eats up all my time and money. And, well, my basement place is tiny, but at least it's cheap. He smirked. I get it. I've been through that too. All right, I better go. It's late. See you tomorrow? See you, I nodded, trying to appear calm. But the moment the door closed behind him, a flutter stirred inside me. My tomorrow suddenly had new meaning. Days and weeks passed. We didn't push into each other's lives, yet somehow they kept intertwining more and more. One evening, while the club was in full swing, one of the dancers rushed over and said that my friend, Yoon-jin, a waitress I'd grown close to, had been called away suddenly for a family emergency and wouldn't be able to walk me home after our shift. It looked like a long night alone awaited me. That night I lingered in the dressing room, sorting out costumes, and when I stepped out, the crowd had mostly vanished. The club was set to close in 15 minutes, the pounding music had faded into a soft ambient tune. I just had to wait for my paycheck and head home. I checked in with the manager, signed off the timesheet, and stepped into the empty hallway. That's when I noticed a light coming from a nearby utility room. The door was slightly ajar. I heard Chansuk's voice inside, and someone else's, loud, sharp, and unfamiliar. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but couldn't bring myself to walk past either. My steps slowed involuntarily. I heard the stranger speak, his voice raised. Listen, your time's up. Did you forget who bailed you out last year? Don't drag this out. Chansuk replied, but too quietly for me to make out the words. The man snorted and added, You think just 'cause you're on stage now, with girls all over your feet, you can ignore us? Hand over the money, or we'll find a way to make you pay. I don't give a damn about your fame. And don't forget, we can find not just you, but the people around you too. A chill ran down my spine. The words were a direct threat, and I suddenly realized I was genuinely scared. Rumors about Chansuk's past, debts, shady connections, rushed through my mind. I took a step back, not wanting to be seen. Everything inside me screamed to leave, to forget I'd heard any of it. But worry, fear, and something deeper, my need to be there for him, kept me rooted to the spot. Fine, I heard Chansuk say, his voice muffled but firm. But don't you dare touch anyone. I'll deal with it. Tell whoever sent you, I haven't forgotten. A loud slap, on the table or door, cut through the silence, and I quickly backed away into the hallway. Peeking around a corner, I saw a stocky man with a shaved head and leather jacket step out of the room and walk toward the exit without a glance back. I waited a few seconds to catch my breath and calm my shaking hands, then quietly approached the door. Chansuk stood leaning against the wall, gripping his phone so tightly it looked like he might crush it. His eyes burned with anger and hopelessness. I gently tapped on the doorframe so he'd notice me. Soo-yeon. He looked up. I'm sorry, I heard. I didn't mean to, I was just walking past, I mumbled, eyes on the floor. Are you okay? He wanted to say everything's fine or it's none of your business, I could see it on his face. But something inside him seemed to give in. He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and gave a resigned nod. It's not okay, but it's my problem. Don't worry. I'll handle it. Who was that? I whispered. He threatened you. No one, he snapped. Just old business. I didn't know what to say. We stood in heavy silence, the tension between us thick. Finally, he took a step closer and, lowering his head, spoke in a softer voice, sorry. I didn't mean to take it out on you. I'll deal with it. I promise. If you need help. I started, knowing full well how empty my offer sounded. What could I possibly do in the middle of something like this? Thanks, he said with a crooked smile. But it's better if you stay out of it. It's not safe. I nodded, knowing there was no use arguing. But deep down, I already sensed this was only the beginning of something bigger. We left the club together. He was dark and brooding, and I was tense, worried. When we reached my building, I started to say goodbye, but he suddenly spoke, you know. I'm just tired. Of all of this. My head won't stop spinning. Can I come in? Maybe have some more of that calming tea? I looked up and saw it in his eyes, that desperate plea. He really was afraid to be alone with his demons. I knew that feeling too well, this city could be so vast, so lonely. Of course, I said quietly. Come in. We climbed, or rather descended, into my little basement apartment. This time, the awkwardness was gone, like time and circumstances had gradually erased the distance between us. He sat on the bed, hunched over, and I turned on the stove and set the kettle to boil. Sorry for burdening you with my presence again, he said, attempting a weak joke. It really is calmer here than in my head. Don't say that, I smiled. I feel calmer when you're here. Maybe I'd said it too openly, but I didn't care. He looked up at me, and I saw that mix of confusion and tenderness in his eyes, the kind of look someone wears when they're not used to kind words. I sat down beside him and gently touched his hand. Chansuk, I'm not trying to intrude into your private life, but when you're not okay, you can just come here and sit. We don't have to talk about anything if you don't want to. He didn't reply, just pressed my hand against his chest, where his heart was pounding. I felt the warmth of his skin, the pulse that echoed my own. The moment felt deeply intimate, important somehow. I held my breath. He paused, searching for the words. I don't want to unload my problems on you. They could be dangerous. But I want to help, I whispered. Or at least be near you, so you don't feel alone. He gave a brief nod, and I caught a glimmer of moisture in his eyes before he quickly looked down to hide it. Just then, the kettle let out a high whistle, sending steam into the air. I jumped up, turned it off, and poured the hot water into a mug. My heart was racing like I'd just run a marathon. When I came back, he looked calmer, but tense in a different, unfamiliar way. I handed him the mug. He took a sip, then set it down on the floor beside him. Suddenly, he reached out, gently pulling me closer by the wrist. Our eyes met, and I felt a flush of heat spread through me, awakening every nerve. Sorry if this is too sudden, he said hoarsely, and then his lips touched mine. I didn't reply with words, because no words could match what I felt. His kiss was hungry, full of a desperate need to forget and, at the same time, a fear of losing me. I kissed him back just as fiercely, surrendering to the moment. There was fear and sweetness tangled inside me, my whole being trembled with the nearness of this man I'd barely known not long ago, but who now felt so familiar. His hand slid down my back, pulling me tighter. I felt him trembling. It was like our breaths merged, the outside world blurring and fading away. There was only the kiss, only these touches. Slowly, we pulled apart, breathless, still sitting on the narrow bed. I tried to speak but couldn't, the words wouldn't come. I don't know how this will turn out, he murmured, holding me again. But I don't want to run from what I feel anymore. I had no idea what exactly he felt, we hadn't talked openly about our relationship. But in that moment, it felt like we were both reaching for each other, like two people who had long yearned for warmth. And despite the danger, I couldn't deny myself this. Maybe it was the riskiest, but also the most honest decision I had ever made. We sat there for a long time, holding each other, kissing now and then, until the tea leaves at the bottom of the mug had gone cold. No words were needed, and I was in no rush. I just felt the rhythm of his heartbeat slowing, his shoulders no longer so tense. He ran his fingertips through my hair, tracing gently along my neck. I shivered involuntarily at the intimacy of his touch. "Are you cold?" he asked. "No, I'm just nervous," I squeezed out a half-truth. And indeed, I was hot and a little uneasy. I wasn't used to letting people get this close to me. "Do you want me to leave?" he asked, as if trying to give me a choice. "No," I shook my head, pressing closer to him. He ran his hand over my cheek, gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I looked into his eyes, and everything inside me turned upside down. I understood that I was about to cross a line, beyond which our relationship would never be the same. But my desire to be near him was stronger than my fears. "Chansak," I whispered, and that was enough. He leaned in again, parting my lips with a kiss. This time his hands confidently slid down to my waist, slightly lifting the edge of my t-shirt. I didn't resist, letting him feel my skin beneath his palms. The room was quiet, with only the occasional night sounds of the city outside the window and the faint hum of the fridge against the wall. But in my head, everything thundered, my consciousness pulsed with desire, with closeness. The timid touches grew more insistent. I felt him taking off my t-shirt. We lay down on my small bed, completely unsuitable for two, but we didn't care. He kissed my neck, my shoulders, moving further, and I noticed a shadow of sadness occasionally flickering across his face, as if he was trying to fully surrender to the moment, but something deep inside reminded him of the past. I decided to gently touch his cheek, look into his eyes, and at that moment, I saw something I will never forget, boundless pain and just as boundless a desire to finally be happy. I pressed him close, letting him feel my touch. His kisses became hotter, his hands bolder. When he traced my collarbone with his lips and moved lower, I felt a rush of goosebumps run all over my body. He caressed me gently, restraining his obvious inner passion, as if afraid to hurt or scare me with suddenness. "Soo-yeon," he said, lifting his head. His hair was slightly tousled, his eyes shining. I don't want to put any labels on what we have. I've never been in a relationship, a normal one, but thank you for being here." I felt tears streaming down my cheeks, tears soaked with feelings and words I couldn't express otherwise. I pressed closer to him and whispered, "Just let it be what it will be." He nodded, kissing my temple. And at that moment, I was sure, we were both ready for something more than just a fling or a passing connection. Maybe it was love, or maybe just its beginning, but somehow, I felt that everything was happening just as it should. We fell asleep somewhere near dawn, and when I opened my eyes, the tiny window was already glowing with pale morning light. Chansak was breathing next to me, still holding me with one arm. I lay very close to his face, studying the small details, his sculpted cheekbones, slightly curved eyebrows, long lashes. It was a pity I couldn't look even deeper, to where all his secrets were kept. He moved, slowly opening his eyes, and met my gaze. A tired but bright smile appeared on his lips. "Good morning." "Morning," I answered softly, feeling a light blush warm my cheeks. For the first time in my life, I woke up in the arms of a man who really mattered to me. "What time is it?" He stretched, trying to find his phone. "Almost 8 a.m. Damn, I still have to stop by the studio today." He sighed, sat up abruptly, looking around for his clothes. "Sorry, I didn't mean to leave like this, but I really can't cancel the meeting." "I understand," I smiled, sitting up myself and adjusting the sheet to cover my nakedness. "I have classes during the day, then rehearsals. The night before we were together, but now, in the sober morning light, life burst into our intimacy, reminding us of everyday duties." He got ready quickly, pulled on a t-shirt and jeans, and I saw him to the door. Before leaving, he paused for a second, leaned down, and kissed me on the lips. "I'll text you. Please take care of yourself. And if anything, call me immediately." The next few days seemed to me the most intense in recent times. I literally flew through rehearsals, feeling a surge of inspiration. Inside me lived the confidence that there was someone nearby who would support me and whom I supported in return. Chansak and I saw each other more often. Sometimes he dropped by after work, sometimes I went to his DJ studio where he mixed tracks, and there we shared brief kisses, trying not to embarrass the other staff. However, the closer we became, the more clearly I felt the shadow of his past looming over us. Sometimes, when we talked about something funny, Chansak suddenly fell silent, as if recalling something unpleasant. Sometimes he got texts that immediately darkened his mood. But I tried not to pressure him or interrogate, although inside I was tightening with fear. And I also noticed that many girls in the club were drawn to Chansak. I always knew he was popular, but now I saw it with my own eyes. Visitors often flirted with him, threw him blatant looks, and some even waited for him at the exit after his shift. Once, while lingering in the dressing room, I inadvertently overheard a conversation between two dancers. "You Chansak is so sweet," one said, admiring herself in the mirror. "And they say he's just amazing in bed." "Maybe he is," agreed the other. "But I heard he rarely starts serious relationships. Only one-night flings." Hearing this, I felt an unpleasant burn of jealousy and insecurity. What if he didn't take me seriously? What if I was just a replacement for loneliness for some time? Shaking off these thoughts, I tried to remind myself that he had been honest with me, that he trusted me with his emotions. But the tormenting doubts didn't let go. One evening, after my short dance performance, I went to the dressing room to change. When I returned to the main hall, I saw one of the half-naked dancers near the DJ booth. She was laughing loudly and playfully tapping Chansak on the arm. He was whispering something to her through the music, and then he laughed too. Apparently, they had a mutual acquaintance or an inside joke. Usually, I wouldn't react to such scenes. After all, working in a club means constant socializing. But inside, a sharp pang hit me so strongly that I even stopped, hesitating to approach the booth. "Don't do anything stupid," I told myself. "It's just innocent flirting. You trust him. Or do you?" I felt sick inside. I turned and walked toward the bar to distract myself and order a non-alcoholic drink. Sitting in a corner, I tried to shift my thoughts elsewhere. After a few minutes, Chansak approached me, still smiling after talking with the dancer. "Hey," he called, leaning down and placing his hand on my shoulder. "Why are you sitting here alone?" "Just tired," I replied indifferently, turning away and pretending to drink from my glass. I felt his palm tense, gripping the fabric of my sweater tightly. "Are you angry?" "What's wrong?" "No," I shrugged without looking away from my glass. "Is there a reason to be?" Only then did he realize I was hurt. I wouldn't have said a word if he hadn't kept asking. But his persistence only deepened my hurt and jealousy. Yet, I understood this could ruin our fragile connection. After all, it was just a scene in the club, typical colleague jokes. Maybe I just needed to honestly say how I felt. "Chansak," I said, finally looking up, "I don't like it when you get so close with girls in front of everyone. I understand it's a club and socializing is part of the job. But it hurts me." He frowned, clearly not expecting such honesty. Sorry, I didn't even think it could hurt you. Choi Ran and I have known each other for a long time. She's like a younger sister to me. There was no flirting. Okay, I nodded, trying to breathe out with relief. Sorry, maybe I'm just acting silly. It's just... I hesitated, unsure how to express what was inside, the fear of losing him, the fear of being unwanted, as if I didn't really believe anyone could love me long and seriously. What do you mean, just? He moved closer, looking at me with his piercing gaze. I hesitated, then decided, I'm afraid. Afraid you'll get tired of me, that for you this will just be another short story. I've heard you've never had anything serious with anyone. And your reputation at the club, well, maybe it's just rumors. He looked at me silently for a long time, then placed his palm on mine. Soo-yeon, he said quietly, yes, I've never had a serious relationship because I couldn't trust. You know, my mom left when I was a teenager, and since then, I've had trouble trusting women. I went through all kinds of bad stuff to drown the pain. Maybe that's why I got the playboy reputation. But that's not my life anymore. You're different. With you, for the first time, I feel like I can be myself. Don't you notice? I felt moisture in my eyes. His words sounded so sincere that I couldn't doubt them. I silently laid my head on his shoulder and whispered softly, sorry for doubting you. It's okay, he pressed my hand to his lips. I doubt myself too. But I don't want to lose you. At that moment, I realized our fears were similar. We both feared being abandoned, betrayed, disappointed. But we were ready to try to overcome it together. I nodded, and the feeling of jealousy receded, replaced by a desire to be closer to him. But our idyll couldn't last forever. A few days later, Chansak came to me at the end of his shift, anxious and even a little angry. I saw him walk to the wall in the hallway and hit it hard with his fist, almost breaking his hand. I jumped, sorry, he gritted his teeth. I just got a call. Looks like things are turning bad. Those bastards I owe money to don't want to wait anymore. They want money? I shuddered, remembering that stocky man. Yes, with big interest. And I haven't saved that much. They promise problems soon if they don't get everything at once. He turned away as if not wanting me to see his eyes. But I still approached and touched his shoulder. Can I help? Maybe lend some money? Well, I don't have much, but still. He spun sharply around. No. Absolutely not. I won't drag you into this. I'll handle it myself. I already regret you knowing about my problems. These people are dangerous, Soo-yeon. He turned away but continued, they said if I don't bring the money, they'll find someone dear to me and have their fun. My heart skipped a beat, blood rushed to my temples. Imagining myself in the hands of these cruel people was terrifying. I took a sharp breath, trying to calm down. But maybe you should go to the police? It's pointless, he cut me off. There's no direct proof of threats. And those guys know how to cover their tracks. Maybe the police would start an investigation, but it would drag on, and in the meantime someone could get hurt. Listen, he grabbed my hands, looking me in the eyes, try to be more careful now. If anything seems suspicious, call me immediately or just dial 112. I'll try to get the money and solve this mess. I squeezed his palms, feeling my heart beating in sync with his breath. Okay. I'll be careful. But you don't do anything stupid either. He smiled faintly. Damn, that won't be easy. After that conversation, we both became tense. I looked out the window at the street as I was getting ready for work, jumping at every suspicious passerby. Several times I thought someone was following me on the way from the bus to my home. Once, I turned around and saw a man trailing behind me. I quickened my pace, my heart racing. But when I turned again, I realized he just lived in the neighboring building. Chansok started coming home late from the club and left early in the mornings without telling me where he was going. Probably trying to find money from acquaintances. I didn't know what he had gotten into or how much he owed. All I could do was hope that everything would work out. One evening, I wanted to invite him to dinner to distract him a little. I bought food, cooked noodles with meat and vegetables, and put it on the table in my tiny room. But Chansok didn't come at the agreed time. I waited for 2 hours, the food cooled down, and he didn't answer my calls. Finally, close to midnight, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and saw him on the doorstep, slightly staggering, with a gleam of alcohol in his eyes. "Sorry," he muttered as he came inside. "I was late." "You were drinking?" I frowned, catching the sharp smell. "Yeah, I was," he smirked, sitting down on the chair. "So what now?" I tried to hold back. "Nothing. I was just worried. You weren't answering your phone. I thought something happened to you." "I'm fine, I'm here." He leaned back and closed his eyes. "I made dinner. But it's cold now." "Not hungry." He waved it off. I fell silent. A heavy silence filled the room. Then I quietly started, "Chansok, what happened?" "Nothing." He opened his eyes and sighed. "I just couldn't find the money. No one wants to help, they're afraid to get involved. And the club's fees aren't enough to quickly get that sum." He looked broken, angry, and at the same time tired. I wanted to hug him, but he looked like he didn't want any touch. "Let's not talk about it now," he said wearily. "I'll solve everything myself, just let me be alone." "But you came to me." I began. "I see you don't understand." He suddenly raised his voice. "I have nowhere else to go. I'm going crazy from all this, and you have it calm. But that doesn't mean I want to hear lectures. I'm already at my limit." I recoiled as if he had hit me with words. My heart clenched with pain. "I wasn't going to lecture you," I replied in a trembling voice. "I'm just worried." "Stop worrying," he muttered, getting up and swaying. "It doesn't help. I'm tired of everything. I'd better leave." "Chansok," I approached him, but he stepped back. "Leave me alone," he breathed out. "I'm drunk and angry. I don't want to take it out on you." I silently watched him turn and head for the door. At the door, he stopped as if about to say something. But he didn't, just went out, slamming the door. I felt my heart drop somewhere deep, tears running down my cheeks. We argued for the first time. It was awful. Inside me was a desire to help him, but he seemed to think I couldn't give him that. I didn't sleep all night, tortured by thoughts. Where is he now? Did he get into even bigger trouble? And the scariest, is he pushing me out of his life? The next day we didn't see each other at the club. My shift was moved to the morning, and he, according to rumors, took the day off and didn't come at all. I became more worried. Calls went unanswered. My heart clenched at the thought that he might have contacted those gangsters again, or I didn't even want to imagine worse. By evening, exhausted and empty, I returned home. I didn't want to eat or move. But halfway to my house, I suddenly saw a familiar silhouette sitting on the bench near the entrance. Chansok. He met my gaze, full of guilt and pleading. "Hi," he said quietly, standing up from the bench. "Hi," I replied, trying to hold back emotions. He came closer and tried to take my hand. "Sorry for losing it yesterday. I acted like a jerk. It's just too much has piled up. I don't know how to handle this anger." "I understand," I exhaled, feeling tears welling up in my throat. "I just want you to know, I'm here if you need me." "Yeah," his voice cracked. "When I left, I realized it's not your fault, and I have no right to treat myself this way. I love you, Soo-yeon." Those words, which I didn't expect to hear so soon, pierced me sharply. I didn't know how to respond, only felt tears running down my cheeks. He saw them and gently wiped them away with his thumb. "Don't cry. It's my fault for making you worry. I love you too, I finally whispered, feeling my heart fill with warmth. I just don't know how to help. You're already helping just by being here, he said softly, hugging me. And I'll figure everything out myself, I promise. Shall we? We went back to my little place, and I put water on for tea. After some coaxing, he gave in and ate a little. Holding the plate of noodles in his hands, he looked embarrassed, but it was clear he was trying to be sincere. I'm working on a new track collection now, he said, trying to change the subject to something more positive. Planning to perform at a festival. If all goes well, maybe I'll earn some money. At least I'll be able to cover part of the debt. The rest we'll handle together, I finished. He nodded, and that evening we didn't argue. On the contrary, we talked until late at night about all kinds of things, from his childhood to my choreography lessons. I told him how, as a child, I used to imitate dances from music videos, and how my mom scolded me for the loud music, and he laughed, saying if we had met back then, maybe we'd have rehearsed together right in the yard. When we went to bed, he hugged me, wrapping me in a warm cocoon of his arms. In the dark, I listened to his breathing and thought that happiness is sometimes just feeling his warmth, knowing you matter, that you're needed. But, as expected, trouble came from an unexpected direction. After a couple of weeks, our life seemed to stabilize somewhat. I was preparing for a small exam at college, running to rehearsals. Chansok said he got in touch with some acquaintance who agreed to lend him money at lower interest rates so he could pay off his debts and somehow get out of this hole. I hoped that soon the problems would start to retreat. And then something happened that I had only read about in cheap books or seen in crime dramas. One day, when I was about to leave the club after my shift, two men in black jackets intercepted me. They stood in front of me, blocking my way. Instinctively, I stepped back, but another man came up behind me. One of them grabbed my arm and hissed, "Hey, baby. You're Chansok's girl, right? Don't run, we need to talk to you." I tried to struggle in horror, but they acted quickly and in sync. Taking advantage of the moment when the corridor near the exit was empty, they dragged me to the back stairs. I screamed, but the loud club music drowned out my cries. Tears streamed down my face, I kicked and scratched, trying to break free. Inside, I was crushed by fear. Is this it? Am I going to get beaten? Raped? "Let's take a little ride," said one, tightening his grip. "Your buddy's been dragging this out too long. Since he doesn't understand nicely, he'll feel that we're not joking." I was in panic, and they, barely bothering with politeness, dragged me to a black van parked by the back entrance. When they shoved me into the vehicle and tied my hands, I was almost losing consciousness from fear. They drove me to some other district. The city flashed past the windows, and I helplessly sat in the back of the van, feeling the plastic ties biting into my wrists. They spat insults, saying Chansok will regret messing with us, you'll regret getting involved with him, and laughed. One of them took photos of me with his phone, showing the others how I looked in tears and terror. When we finally stopped, they pulled me out and led me into a half-abandoned apartment, dirty walls, dark corridors, broken windows, the smell of dampness. I couldn't tell where we were, but I knew for sure it was unsafe. There were several people in the room, all with cruel eyes. And one of them was the stocky man I had seen at the club before. "What a surprise," he sneered, savoring each word. "Tell your boyfriend he has 24 hours. Otherwise, you'll stay here for a long time. And if anything happens to you..." He traced his finger over my chin, and I tried to pull away in disgust. God, help me. I thought, realizing screaming was useless, no one would hear me here. My heart felt like it would tear apart from fear. They sat me on an old sofa, tied my hands, and the stocky man pulled out his phone to record me crying. He clearly enjoyed my helplessness. "Say something to the camera, baby," he grinned, pointing the camera at my tear-streaked face. "Say hi to your beloved." I bit my lip, trying not to pass out. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of crying and begging. But I still sobbed, unable to hold it in. He filmed me and then sent the video to someone. Most likely to Chansak. Let's see how he responds, the stocky man winked, putting away the phone. How fast will he come to save his lady? That was the start of the worst time in my life. They kept me in that apartment for hours, sometimes tormenting me with words, sometimes just ignoring my presence. I didn't know where my phone was, didn't know how to escape. The windows were boarded up, and I had no strength left to resist. For a while, I tried talking to them, begging to let me go, but they just laughed. We want your buddy with the money, and you're our trophy for now. The worst part was knowing that no one except Chansak knew where I was. He was probably going crazy, searching for me, but I wasn't sure if he could handle it. And if he didn't find the money? No, don't think about that, I told myself. Yet the tears kept flowing. Soon I realized that one of the scumbags, the same one who had been taking pictures of me, had developed an even more disgusting interest. He kept coming closer, making crude insinuations, trying to grope me. I could smell the suffocating stench of cigarettes and cheap alcohol from him and tried to turn away. Nausea welled up in my throat. Hey, don't you dare, the stocky one, the leader, scolded him. We need money, not a corpse. Let her stay whole and unharmed for now. Come on, boss, the other sneered. I just want a little taste, she's so sweet. Fear twisted inside me. Luckily, the stocky man gave me a harsh look. If you touch her again, it'll be worse for you. We don't want any noise, got it? The other guy grimaced but backed off, throwing me a look that sent chills down my spine. I silently thanked all the higher powers that at least the leader was keeping him in check, but I knew the situation could change at any moment. Several more agonizing hours passed. They occasionally went to another room to talk. I heard the leader arguing on the phone, ordering, "Get the money here, or this girl won't be feeling well." So, he had already spoken with Chansak. Finally, near dawn, the whole gang suddenly became noticeably anxious. The leader told someone, "He's coming with his buddies now." Well, let's see if he brings the cash. Be ready to act tough if needed. Hearing this, I froze tensely. So Chansak is coming, I thought, but it's a trap. If they outnumber him, things could end badly. I imagined him being beaten and almost screamed in terror. But my voice was gone. There was nothing but despair around. 15 minutes later, there was noise, the door slammed in the hallway, and someone loudly spoke. The men in the room tensed, grabbing bats and knives. The leader shouted, "Quiet. Everyone to the doors. Let him show what he brought first." I sat curled up, my wrists still bound with plastic ties, but I tried to stand and peek into the corridor. At that moment, the door burst open, and a whole crowd rushed in. Leading them was Chansak. Behind him were two of his friends I occasionally saw at the club, burly guys, probably security or acquaintances from some street circles. Chansak looked frantic, sweaty, and seemingly furious beyond belief. "Where is she?" he breathed, glaring at the leader. "Calm down, buddy," the leader smirked, leaning against the door frame. "First, show us what you brought." Here, Chansak threw a sports bag on the floor. "This is everything." Two gangsters stepped toward the bag, unzipped it, and began counting the money. I had no idea where he got it, but it was a whole pile of bills. The leader eyed the cash like a predator. Suddenly, he sneered crookedly, Not enough. We wanted interest, remember?" "This is all I have," Chansak hissed, clenching his fists. "Let her go." No, man. That's not how it works. This isn't enough. Maybe we'll take your girl here as interest, huh?" I screamed, "Chansak. I'm here." He turned his head, saw me in the corner. Our eyes met, and I will never forget the fierce fire that ignited in his. He lunged toward me, but the leader raised his hand, and his henchmen attacked Chansak and his friends. A brutal fight erupted. Screams, blows, the clanging of metal, it all blended into chaos. One of Chansok's friends pulled out a stick and fought off two gangsters. Chansok himself seemed to transform into a furious beast, crushing anyone who blocked his way. Realizing that I wouldn't escape otherwise, I looked for something sharp to cut the ties. Finally, I spotted a shard of a bottle near the sofa. I reached for it carefully, trying not to cut myself too badly, and began sawing through the plastic. The situation was critical. People were shouting, swinging bats, and furniture was flying. At one point, I heard one of the gangsters shout, "The cops! The cops are coming!" Apparently, someone had managed to call the police. Maybe the neighbors heard the noise. While the gangsters panicked, I finally freed myself and ran to Chansok. He was leaning against the wall, with a split lip and scrapes on his hands, breathing heavily. Seeing me next to him, he hugged me. "Are you okay?" "Yes," I sobbed. "God, you're covered in blood." "Doesn't matter, as long as you're safe." One of the gangsters shouted, "Let's get out of here." And part of the group rushed into the hallway. But the leader didn't escape. The arriving police caught him along with two of his henchmen. Seeing them handcuffed, my heart almost burst with relief. "Report that we have a kidnapping here," I heard a police officer say over the radio. "The victim has been found." Chansok held my hand, never letting go. The police approached to figure out who we were. The rest was a blur. I gave statements, as did Chansok and his friends. They kept asking if we needed medical help. I was examined, only bruises, scrapes, and psychological trauma. Chansok had a cracked rib but stayed strong. "Can you come with us to the station to file a report?" A police officer asked me. Of course, I nodded, feeling like I might faint. We spent the night at the police station, filling out reports and answering questions. Chansok was interrogated too. It turned out these gangsters had long been wanted. The police were glad to catch several members of the gang red-handed. The money Chansok brought was confiscated as evidence. He might have to go to court to get it back, but for now, life and freedom were the most important. When everything was over, we went outside near dawn. I was trembling from cold and shock, and Chansok, barely able to stand, wrapped his arms around my shoulders. "Sorry. Sorry for dragging you into this. I swear, it will never happen again. The main thing is that you're alive. We'll get through everything else." We called a taxi and went to the hospital, where he had an x-ray. The rib fracture was confirmed, and he was prescribed rest. I was examined as well and offered a psychologist's consultation. But I felt the best medicine now was the understanding that the nightmare was behind us, and that he was by my side. Back in my tiny room, we lay next to each other, saying almost nothing. I heard his muffled groans as he tried to get comfortable and tried to help by adjusting his pillow and blanket. Finally, he sighed, "Now everything will be different." Yes, I covered his hand with mine. "We're free." Only then did the tears pour from my eyes, left over from fear, tension, and the thought that we might have lost each other. He lifted himself up with effort, pulled me close, and I felt the warmth of his breath near my ear. "I'm with you, Soo-yeon. And I'm not going anywhere." Even though Chansok had a cracked rib, he tried not to show pain. Knowing his character, I understood. The physical wound was not as scary to him as the guilt for what had happened to me. He often woke up at night, seeing nightmares, and sometimes I caught his gaze filled with helpless anger at himself. I tried not to pressure him with talk but still said, "We'll get through it together. Please don't blame yourself." "I'll try," he usually replied with a bitter smile. But forgetting isn't easy. It wasn't easy for me to forget either. Sometimes I suddenly started shaking, recalling the nasty sneers of those men or the clinking of the plastic ties on my wrists. I jumped at any sharp knock on the door or loud noise outside. About 2 weeks passed. Chansok occasionally went to DJ sets but mostly conserved his strength to let his rib heal faster. I took a short break from the club and arranged for an academic week at school. Fortunately, the teachers were understanding when they learned about the emergency. So, Chansak and I found ourselves almost locked in my tiny apartment for a while, as if in a separate world. In a way, it brought us even closer. We were getting used to living together. Despite the Spartan conditions, I felt a special warmth from having my loved one nearby. I got up earlier to make breakfast, or at least tea. He, trying not to strain his injured rib, still tried to help with small chores, taking out the trash, wiping the floor. Sometimes we just lay side by side for hours, hugging, staring at the ceiling, talking about nothing and everything at once, our dreams, plans for the future, and things that would never be the same again. I have some savings, he admitted one day while we were discussing finances. After all payments and paying back debts, there's a little left. Maybe we could try renting a decent apartment? Don't you think it's too soon? I asked, blushing. We just barely got out of the nightmare. And I'm not sure if I can pay my share of the rent. I'm not rushing you, he corrected me gently. I just don't want you to keep living in a basement. After everything, I want to give you at least a little comfort and safety. I thought about it. The very idea of moving to a brighter, more spacious place made my heart skip a beat. What if we were taking on too much? But looking into his eyes, I saw his firm intention to take care of me. And I understood, it was important to him to show that he could keep his word, that we could build anew after together. Let's look at some options, I finally smiled. Just promise me we'll decide together. Deal, he nodded, and I noticed a truly happy smile on his lips. I probably hadn't seen him so relaxed in a long time. When we somewhat recovered and returned to work, the club welcomed me back like someone returned from war. Colleagues who heard about the incident came up, hugged me, and offered words of support. Some whispered behind my back, shaking their heads sympathetically. Of course, the kidnapping story became public knowledge. After all, the police had come to a place connected with the club. But management decided not to stir up a scandal to avoid scaring clients. Chansak also returned to his DJ work. The crowd missed him. He was the club's face, the star who fired up the crowd at night. On his first night back, we stood together behind the DJ booth, I in another dance costume, he behind his decks and mixer. When he played his signature track, the audience roared as if welcoming a hero returning from a distant journey. I felt pride and awe watching him. He seemed reborn from the ashes, leaving behind the threat that had chased us. But fate was not very kind to us. No sooner had we caught our breath than another storm, of a very different kind, burst into our lives. It happened when I was returning to the dressing room after another performance to change. I was about to take off my bright costume when a strange girl appeared in the doorway. Or rather, not quite strange, I had overheard her name, So-yeon, one of Chansok's ex-girlfriends. There were rumors in the club that she had dated him for quite a while, was, so to speak, a steady girlfriend, until one day they broke up. She looked flawless, long hair, luxurious makeup, barely over 20, dressed in a bright designer outfit that screamed money. She walked in as if everything here belonged to her. I froze, confused, not knowing what to say. She sized me up from head to toe and then asked haughtily, "Are you the Lee Soo-yeon?" "Yes," I replied, carefully brushing my hair from my face. "How can I help you?" "I need to see Chansok. I heard he's performing here again. I flew in from abroad just for a few days and want to meet him. You can take me to him, right?" Her arrogant tone made something tighten inside me. I tried to keep a polite expression. "He's probably at the DJ booth right now. He'll finish his set soon, then you can talk." "May I ask what you need from him?" "Personal matters," she cut in, pursing her lips. "Judging by the looks of it, you're not just a waitress, huh?" "Ah. I see. Well, tell him I'm in the VIP area. I think he won't want to ignore me." Having said that, she turned and left, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and an unpleasant feeling. I stood frozen, staring at the door. My mind flooded with anxious thoughts. Why did she come? How would Chansok react to her? Maybe they hadn't completely broken up or she still had feelings. Jealousy and fear swirled inside me. but I decided not to panic and wait until he was free so we could discuss everything honestly. After the performance, I went out to the dance floor and saw Soo-yeon indeed sitting in the VIP area, tapping her foot in a luxurious shoe, with a couple of her friends nearby. She deliberately chose a table with the best view of the DJ stage. Chansak, finishing his set, noticed her, and I caught his surprised glance directed at me. He paused, sighed, and after hesitating, went toward the table. From a distance, I saw her lean up, wrap her arms around his neck. He pulled away, but only weakly, whisper something passionately in his ear. He listened with a skeptical expression. Then she suddenly grabbed his hand, pulled him close, showing her friends, as if to say, "Look who's mine." I saw irritation written on his face, but he tried to stay polite, as if not wanting to make a scene. Inside, I boiled with jealousy and hurt, but I understood I couldn't storm in and cause a scene in front of the crowd. Later, when the music died down and the crowd started to leave, I stayed backstage, trying to keep myself together and not have a meltdown. Chansak came into the dressing room. I was folding costumes into my bag. He looked tired but determined. "Hi," he said, approaching and touching my hand. "Sorry we didn't get to talk earlier. I had to settle an unpleasant meeting." "Is that your ex?" I asked quietly, pulling away. I needed to hear the truth. "Yes." Soo-yeon. "We were together before, but that ended over a year ago." She came back for some reason right now. My words sounded reproachful. "What does she want?" He sighed. "She says she wants to get back together. That she's back in Seoul and remembers the old times. But honestly, I think she has her own reasons. Maybe she had a fight with her parents or wants some excitement." "And you?" I asked, trying not to show my anxiety. "How do you feel?" "Nothing," he shook his head. "Our relationship was a mistake. Honestly, I didn't love her. We just shared an interest in clubs, partying. When it got serious, I realized there was no closeness of souls. She left me in a hard time, went abroad when I needed money and support. And now suddenly she appears." I was silent, feeling anxiety squeezing my heart. "Yes, he says he doesn't love her now. But she surely has her ways to influence him, especially since they were once together." And she looked too determined to just give up. "All right," I said, swallowing a lump in my throat. "I hope you'll figure it out yourself. I don't want to interfere." Pain and tenderness flashed in his eyes. He hugged me, pulling me close. "I've already made my choice, and it's you. Don't be afraid." I nodded, burying my face in his shoulder, feeling his scent, his warmth. I wanted to believe his words. But a shadow of doubt stirred inside me. What if the past comes back easier than it seems? As it turned out, my fears were not unfounded. Soo-yeon began showing up actively in the club over the next days, right during Chansok's sets, demonstratively sitting in the VIP area, ordering expensive drinks, and behaving as if everything should revolve around her. Some dancers who loved gossip whispered, "Did you see how she looks at him?" "Yeah, and they say they had a wild past. Maybe she wants him back. Poor Soo-yeon, hope she doesn't get left out." One evening, when Chansok was finishing his set and I was touching up my makeup and my dance costume, the dressing room door flew open, and Mayan appeared in the doorway. Her face wore a confident smirk, like she was already the winner. I straightened sharply, feeling my insides tighten. "Hello again, Soo-yeon," she started in a falsely friendly tone. "You don't mind if I stay here a few minutes? Need to fix my makeup." "This is a dressing room for dancers," I replied as calmly as possible. "If you need a mirror, look in another room." "Oh, how rude," she chuckled. "And I just wanted to have a nice talk with you." I felt goosebumps run over my skin. The conversation promised to be unpleasant. But I decided not to run away from problems. "Go ahead." Mayan came closer, looking me up and down as if evaluating. Her thin lips stretched into a slightly mocking smile. "I've known Chansok much longer than you, baby. We've been through a lot together. You really think he seriously chose you? He's just hiding from the past, in which, for your information, I played a very important role. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my breathing steady. He said you broke up. Broke up? Maybe. But some feelings, like attachments, don't disappear with a snap of the fingers. And I think if I want, he'll come back to me. We have a lot in common, things neither you nor he will ever have. Her last words stung me especially. I remembered my poverty, my provincial background, lack of connections and influential friends. And she, seemingly from a wealthy family, used to a life of luxury, knows glamorous parties, lives large. But I couldn't show her my weakness. Listen, Mayan, I replied, trying to sound firm. If you have something to settle with Chansak, do it with him. If he wants to leave with you, that will be his choice, but as far as I know, he doesn't. Mayan snorted, we'll see. For now, don't expect everything to go smoothly. I'm staying in Seoul for a long time. With those words, she turned and left the dressing room, leaving behind a cold breeze of perfume. I felt my knees trembling. Tears of helpless rage welled up in my eyes. Why now? But deep down, I sensed she wasn't bluffing. Apparently, she really wanted something from Chansak, money, influence, or control over him. And I didn't know how to resist. That evening, I noticed Chansak and Mayan talking animatedly in the VIP area. He looked irritated, but she gently touched his hand. I saw all this from afar while carrying drinks, and my heart clenched with jealousy. I knew if I caused a scene, I'd only show my weakness. So, after calming down, I waited until he finished work and left through the service exit. Chansak. I called out as he was about to get on his bike. Wait. He turned around. I stepped closer, feeling everything inside boil up. Were you talking again? I asked, not hiding my reproach. She came on to me herself, he sighed irritably. Said she wants to restore friendly relations. I made it clear I have a girlfriend. And? She got offended but insists we meet to discuss the past. I don't want any drama, but I can't be openly rude to her either. So I have to figure out how to handle it peacefully, so she leaves me alone. I gritted my teeth. Maybe it's better to say clearly that it's over between you and there's no chance. I already said that. Chansak raised his voice. But she ignores it. Says, I will get my way anyway. I'm tired of her manipulations but don't know how to make her finally back off. She really knows how to get under my skin. I'm afraid that won't work, I muttered, recalling her words. If I want, he'll come back to me. Listen, maybe you should talk to her seriously, one-on-one? And what will that change? He put the helmet under his arm, frowning. Aren't you afraid she'll cause trouble? I'm afraid, I admitted, lowering my eyes. But I'm even more afraid she'll keep hanging around forever, playing with our nerves. Okay, I'll think about it, he nodded, looking past me. I felt the tension between us grow. After everything we'd been through, I didn't want conflict, but this topic was painful. He cursed under his breath, then hugged me tightly. Soo-yeon, I won't leave you for her. You're my girl, the only one I need. But please, believe me, I'll sort it out. I'm not a child. I believe. I whispered, feeling tears well up. I just don't know what will happen next. Everything will be fine, he kissed my forehead. I'll call you in the morning. Still, a troubling feeling remained. We parted ways for the night, and I dreamed restless dreams of Mayan laughing at me, taking Chansok's hand, leaving me alone in the dark. A few more days passed, and I tried to stay upbeat, diving into rehearsals and work. But one day, a dancer came to me saying, there's some stylishly dressed girl backstage who says she wants to give you a message from Mayan. My heart clenched. Why would she want to send me a message? I went out and saw a petite but striking girl, the messenger. She handed me an envelope with cold politeness. Opening it, I found an invitation to a fancy dinner at an expensive restaurant. At the end was a note, Come with Chansak if you decide. I want to discuss our future. So-yeon. I nearly laughed at the absurdity. So now she's not just hanging out at the club but inviting us to a fancy dinner? Why? To show her superiority in an atmosphere of luxury? Or to demonstrate how much higher she is than me? But on the other hand, maybe this was a chance to put all the dots on the I once and for all. That evening, when I showed the invitation to Chansak, he swore at first and crumpled it up, but then he paused thoughtfully. Maybe we really should go? Say everything to her with you present. So she has no illusions left. Are you sure? I still hesitated. Yes. Better to explain everything once and for all than to suffer in uncertainty. So, on the appointed evening, we went to that very luxurious restaurant. The hall was styled in European classic style, with tall columns and velvet tablecloths. Just looking at the menu made my eyes pop, dishes costing hundreds of thousands of won each. Wow ! I thought. We sat at a table where So-yeon was already sitting in an elegant dress, pearl jewelry, holding a glass of wine. What a crowd, she smiled, pointing to the empty seats. Please, sit down. I ordered some wine and snacks for us. Chansak sat opposite, and I settled next to him. The atmosphere felt like the calm before the storm. Yeon glanced between me and him with a slight smirk, as if keeping us on edge. Glad you came. So it's not all lost after all. Stop it, Chansak cut her off dryly. Us being here means nothing. We came so you could finally hear my position. I have a girlfriend, and I'm with her. Yeon slightly raised an eyebrow, then took a sip of wine. Well, let's discuss this calmly. I see you've gotten sharp. Soo-yeon, what do you think? Do you support him? I squeezed Chansak's hand under the table, trying to speak evenly. Chansak made it clear that everything between you is in the past. The sooner you accept it, the better for everyone. She dragged out, twisting her lips. What if I say we have a child? I went cold. Frozen, I stared at her. Chansak also froze, eyes wide. You're lying. He finally spat out. Oh, really? She smiled. I have proof. She pulled out some paper from her purse. I didn't see what exactly, but I suspected it might be a forgery. My heart pounded. If it's true, everything gets 1,000 times more complicated. When could that have happened? Chansak raised his voice. We broke up more than a year ago. True, she nodded. But remember how you comforted me before I left? It was fun, and something might have happened. I didn't think much of it at first, but time passed. Yes, it was late, I didn't tell you. I left abroad, to keep away from trouble. But now I've decided, why not come back and reunite the family? My heart was pounding fast, my vision blurred. Could this really be true? Chansak stood frozen, pale, looking at her. I don't believe it. You would have told me earlier. Or asked for money. You hurt me, she narrowed her eyes. I wanted to handle it myself, even considered an abortion. But at the last moment, I changed my mind. I gave birth. The baby is a few months old now, living with my parents in another city. And now I'm here for you to make the right choice. Come back to me and our son. A heavy pause followed. I saw Chansak struggling for air. He looked from Yeon to me, not knowing what to believe. I couldn't think clearly either. If he really had a child? Did that mean he was obliged to be with Yeon? Or was she lying? Show me proof, Chansak finally said through clenched teeth. I want to see a DNA test, want to know it's not fake. She shrugged. Fine. We can do the test. But right now, I see you're both starting to panic. You understand what this means, right? I'm ready to forgive you and give our son a full family. But if you refuse, scandal, press, anything. Your reputation matters, doesn't it? Chansak sighed heavily, squeezing my hand. Listen, Mayan. I can't make a decision based on your words. We'll do the test. If it really is my child, I won't reject him. I'm ready to support financially. But in terms of our relationship, it's over. I love Soo-yeon. She flashed her eyes. You mean mommy will live alone while you're rolling around with your provincial girl? No way, darling. If the child's yours, be ready to go all the way. Don't you dare insult Soo-yeon, he growled angrily, standing up. And remember, I'll never be with you. Never. I just got out of debts and danger. Don't think I'm weak enough to get caught on your hook again. Mayan pressed her lips, her hand trembling with rage. Fine. Let's see how you sing when I show you my son. And when the test confirms your fatherhood. She abruptly stood, grabbed her purse, and quickly left, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. Chansak leaned on the edge of the table, breathing heavily, clearly a storm raging inside him. I sank into my chair, feeling as if a 10-ton weight had fallen on my heart. Later, when we left the restaurant, Chansak immediately went out for a cigarette, even though I rarely saw him smoke. He took shaky drags, then threw the butt into a trash can. I approached him, and he hugged me so tightly as if I might disappear. I don't know what to say, he whispered. It's like a nightmare. What if she's telling the truth? Then we'll have to do the test, I replied, trying to stay calm, though I was trembling inside. If he's your child, you have the right to see him and help him. But that doesn't mean you have to be with her. There are compromises, alimony, joint custody. Yes, but can you imagine the scandal? He sighed heavily. I never thought I could have a child. And also, he looked into my eyes with despair. I'm afraid this might destroy us. I don't want this to break us, I said, feeling tears gather in the corners of my eyes. I love you. And if it turns out you're the father, we'll just find a way to live with it. You won't lose me. He pressed me even closer. Soo-yeon, you're the kindest person in the world. Thank you. For several days, we lived in a state of nervous waiting. Mayan promised to send samples for the test and even threatened to bring the baby to Seoul herself. I didn't know what to fear more, that she was right or that she was lying, but if so, her next move was unclear. Chansak was gloomy, slept fitfully, and I tried my best to support him. One evening, when we were alone in my tiny room, I changed into comfortable home clothes and put on the kettle. Chansak sat on the bed, staring blankly. Silence filled the room. Finally, I couldn't hold back and asked, You're really worried, aren't you? Yes, he ran his hand through his hair. I'm scared. I never thought of myself as a father. I'm not ready. And she, Mayan. She's manipulating this. I sat down next to him, hugging his shoulders. Chansak, whatever happens, you're not alone. I'll be here. If there really is a child, I don't blame him. And I don't blame you for the past. We weren't together then. He turned to me, and I saw not just fear but love in his eyes. He stroked my cheek with his hand. You're incredible. I've always been afraid that if some dirt from my past comes out, I'd be abandoned. But you're still here. Because I love you, I whispered, pressing to his lips. I'm so tired of scandals and stress, he muttered as we calmed down. I want a normal life with you. We will have it, I promised, finding his hand. Just believe me. A couple of weeks later, Mayan showed up again. She called Chansak and said she wanted to do the test officially, in a well-known clinic, to have a legal document. Chansak agreed. I decided not to attend the sample taking because it was their private matter. But then he asked, Please, come with me. I need your support. I don't want to be there alone with her. I hesitated but eventually agreed. On the appointed day, we went to the clinic. Mayan was there, with a small child in the arms of an elderly nanny. My heart clenched. The baby really exists. He was tiny, dressed in a blue romper. Mayan held herself confidently, as if already imagining herself the winner in this story. Chansak froze, looking at the baby. I saw conflicting emotions flash across his face: fear, doubt, curiosity. He slowly stepped forward, as if wanting to see the child's features. What if he really looks like me? Flashed through my mind. The doctors registered us and took samples. The DNA test would take time. We were told results would be ready in a few days. While the procedures finished, Mayan kept trying to provoke conversation. See how good he is. Of course, he looks like me. But the nose, that's yours, Chansak. Look closely. He didn't respond, only squeezed my hand. I looked at the baby but didn't see clear resemblance. But who knows, kids change quickly. My head buzzed with anxiety. After the medical formalities, we left the building. Mayan said something about preparing the nursery and threw a mocking look at me. I wanted to retort sharply but stayed silent, not wanting a scene in public. Finally, Mayan called a taxi and left, taking the baby and her triumphant smirk with her. Chansak sat on a nearby bench and covered his face with his hands. I cautiously sat next to him. Everything will be okay. If the child is mine, he whispered hoarsely, I don't know what to do. We'll figure it out. Together, I repeated, hugging him. And though I was trembling with fear, I tried to be strong. The agonizing days of waiting began. Each of us worked, pretending everything was fine, but inside we counted the hours until the clinic's news. And finally, the doctor called and said the results were ready. We came together, but Mayan hadn't arrived yet. The doctor, holding the report, said with a neutral expression, according to the test, the probability of paternity is less than 1%. So, with very high certainty, we can say that Mr. Yu Chansak is not the biological father of the child. I sighed so deeply as if I could finally breathe fully. My head spun with relief. Chansak closed his eyes and clenched his fists. Probably, a storm was raging inside him. The doctor handed us the official paper confirming the results. Thank you, Chansak exhaled. Thank you so much. A few minutes later, Mayan appeared in the corridor, shining like a brass basin. So, congratulations on the official confirmation. Where's my document? He handed her a copy of the result, and she brought it to her eyes, scanning the lines. Her smile turned glassy. First, she froze, then sharply looked at the doctor. This is a mistake. It can't be. You must have done the test wrong. Why you? Mayan breathed heavily, looking at Chansak as if searching for an excuse. It's all because of some mistake in the documents. I was sure. Okay, you paid a lot to fake the results, didn't you? Chansak only laughed bitterly. There you showed your true face. You were just looking for a reason to make me come to you. I hope the child has a real father who will take care of him. And leave me alone. Forever. And no, wait, she tried to grab his hand, but he sharply pulled away. I came back for you. I thought it was your son. We could have been happy. Our time has long passed, he said firmly. Sorry to be harsh, but I won't let you manipulate me anymore. I looked at Mayan. Just a minute ago she seemed like a steel lady, but now her face was distorted with despair. Maybe she really believed the child was his all this time, but most likely she wasn't sure. Now the card was played. You'll regret this. She hissed, clutching the baby, clearly not knowing how to get out of this. Get out, country bumpkin. She screamed at me through tears of rage. But I just hugged Chansak tighter at the waist. We turned and walked away, leaving Mayan alone with her defeat. At the clinic exit, it was as if we both shed heavy chains. Chansak looked exhausted, but in his eyes I read relief and determination. He took several deep breaths, as if he couldn't believe his own freedom. I think it's all over, he said, slowing his pace. Truly over. These two stories, with the gangsters and the ex, were the scariest ghosts of my past. And now they're gone. Yes, I pressed against his hand. Now all that's left is to live on. And I want to live on with you, he said, stopping and turning me to face him. Soo-yeon, shall we move in together? Like we planned. Let's finally find a small apartment, not too expensive, but with enough room for both of us. I want to wake up next to you not just in your half-basement, but in a normal, bright place. My lips trembled with a happy smile. Yes, let's move. I agree. He chuckled softly, holding me in a light rush of joy. At that moment, I felt like crying from emotion, joy, gratitude to fate that everything ended this way. The next weeks we spent busy, looking through ads, going to apartment viewings. Eventually, we found a cozy one-room apartment in a new building on the outskirts of Seoul. It wasn't too expensive, with simple furnishings, but big windows letting in the sunlight. When we entered it together for the first time, I felt a flower of hope bloom inside me. Here we'll be happy, whispered Chansak, looking around the still empty walls. I'll hang posters with my set lists here and buy proper shelves for your textbooks. I smiled, imagining how we'd furnish the living room with a small couch where we'd rest together. I remembered our dreams. He wants to continue his DJ career, and I want to become a professional choreographer. The difficulties won't disappear, but now we are not alone. That evening, tired but happy, we sat on the floor leaning against the sofa, with 2 cups of cheap wine bought at a nearby store. There was no table yet, and the fridge was empty, but we didn't care. To us. Chansak raised his cup. To our new life, I echoed, clinking my cup against his. We took sips and immediately laughed, tasting the sourness of the wine, but even that seemed better than fancy restaurant drinks. You know, he said, turning to me and taking my hand, I have another dream. Someday I want to open my own small music label where young talents come. And you can choreograph their performances. Or create shows. It'll be great. Dreams should come true, I winked. I'm on board with that. I'll be your choreographer. He leaned in, kissed my forehead. I love you, Lee Soo-yeon. Thank you for believing in me and staying by my side even when everything was falling apart. I laid my head on his shoulder and closed my eyes, listening to the night city noise outside the windows. Inside me reigned peace and quiet joy. We did it. We went through all the trials and can now build a future. Surely there will be new fights, crises, misunderstandings. But the main thing, we learned to conquer fear together. I love you too, I whispered. From now on, one melody sounds in the rhythm of our hearts. He smiled, looking at me tenderly. May this melody accompany us always.